In a moment in time when the war on truth headlines are competing with hot takes, studying history is more than just nostalgia. It's actually defense for history. Disinformation spreads faster than corrections, and even the usefulness of museums are getting questioned as nice to have things instead of necessary civic infrastructure. But archives, classrooms, and galleries are where we test memories against evidence, push past myths, and of course learn the habits of mind that keep a community honest. Today, we have 8 points that go towards this war on truth, which is an issue on why museums and history and those things that we tend to take for granted are now something we need to actually work on defending. Myth versus reality. History confronts patriotic legends and tidy origin stories with messy facts. That tension forces you to compare what you've been told with the records actually showing the receipts. The discomfort is the point of it. It sharpens the judgment. We get a narrative from people telling the stories as we want to hear them, and then we're going to look back to see how things actually played out, the in-between things. It's the bathroom scenes you don't see in the movie that actually go to piece things together in reality, as opposed to the clean version you see from your telling of tales from folks. Perspective checking. Reading sources from different sides of the same event reveal how viewpoints shape the truth. You'll learn to ask who wrote it, whom they wrote it for, and why they actually put the words to paper. This habit travels with you into today's news feeds as well, as you'll see a story, a headline, watch a video, see a TikTok, something, and wonder the who, what, where, why, and how behind it. Because yes, even folks trying to tell you the truth have a bit of perspective that they want to share. And it's all a matter of how much perspective is perspective and not alternate facts. Cause, effect, and complexity. History resists simple answers by showing how economics, the culture, technology, and personalities of the time actually collide. Correlation is not causation. It never is, but here's a case where you can see it in words, in forms in front of you, with timelines exposing the difference. The more you map out the chain of events, how things actually went from A to B to C, harder it is to cling to an easy narrative. Having details, having history, having some of the ugly parts that don't get put out in pretty stories makes history what's worth it. Continuity and change. Studying long arcs shows how actual things change from time to time and what stubbornly does not change. You see recycled debates wearing new clothes and new problems with very old roots to them. That recognition helps you respond to wisdom instead of panic. In the times we live in today, where we are all questioning what's being told to us by both sides, it really takes a person who can go back into the history of things to see how things progress to get us here. And then you can choose which side you want to believe in the making of said history. Humanizing the other. One of the things the primary sources of your history give to you, where you get the actual where it came from, allows you to live the lives of people unlike you, and complicates the stereotypes that you've grown to learn and sometimes love about those people. When you hear voices that were ignored or silenced, your moral math gets recalculated. Empathy becomes evidence-based, not sentimental. It's not just living off the memories of nostalgia. It's what were the lives of the people not like you really like back then, to a good light or to a bad light. How are people who would not have been in your shoes in those days actually treated and actually lived? And how are people who are not in your shoes today, based on history and unfortunately based on the present, being treated that are not like you? Evidence weighing and media literacy. Archivists, curators, and historians teach how to test documents, objects, and images for credibility. You learn to separate first-hand accounts from hearsay, context from caption, and artifacts from artifacts story. The skill set is a vaccine against modern misinformation. And yes, in this time and age, we're fighting vaccines as well. But it's a buffer from not knowing what truth is or not getting a bad batch of truth, if you will, to understand how things happen and how things were. because it's important to go back to a file and see how things were. We need to compare it to how things actually are right now. Policy lessons without the tuition. Past reforms, crisis, and blunders often are the case studies we can pull from on what worked and what backfired in our past. Learning how previous generations priced trade-offs will help you ask better questions about the policy you want to make today. What wall you want to build that may become a buffer, and what wall you want to take down that may take down some defense. It won't hand you a script that's ready to play, but it will give you some ideas and narrow your options and not have such a naive ability to jump into things. You'll see how things happen when you make those decisions and make those trade-offs, as opposed to just hope for the best because you believe it will be better. Contingency and humility. History shows us how small choices and accidents redirect whole nations. Basically, press this button for good, and the unintended consequences mean something else. And it's really a matter of how unintended the consequences turn to be, because there's always an unintended consequence. The awareness of this cools overconfidence in thinking and adds people to ask the question, what if doesn't work? Or what if it works too well? Leaders who can grasp this are better at contingency plans. They can come up with ideas when something doesn't go out well, and citizens who grasp this can have smarter arguments against their other citizens and the governments that are in control, asking the questions to really push back to see what if and how will this actually affect us. Ethics under pressure. Records of wartime decisions, public health crisis, and social movements reveal how values bend or hold over time. Seeing past actors choose under uncertainty helps you evaluate today's leadership more clearly. It also challenges you to define your own red lines of what you will take and not take. In a time where many people are finding themselves in difficult situations, having difficult conversations, and not knowing quite what to expect day after day, ethics is a concern. And while people may be doing things for the source of good, the good of all beings, the good of more people, doing the best for more people, sometimes those ethics can be questioned outright, or sometimes those ethics, when questioned, become the actual issue. You have a choice to define yourself, your ideas, and know when to battle and when the pressure is to stand back on these issues. And so, studying history also reminds us that the winners tend to hold the pen, but ownership of the pen is not the same as ownership of the truth. Our job is to keep reading against the grain, pressing institutions, authors, and ourselves to document the full story, especially the parts that don't flatter. Accountability means insisting that what gets written is not only what happens to the powerful, the winner, but what actually happened to everyone else. How the losers fared, how they had to go back to where they came from and survive or stop surviving. We live in a time where it's great to read alternate history and great to read things that are sort of made up from time past, period dramas and such. But the period drama has to go back to the period at some point. Understand, while we may love the fiction of the Romantic era, everything wasn't bright and rosy, and they weren't all wearing corsets and bright colors. History is important. It's important for many reasons, but the main reason is we have to start from somewhere. And if we don't start from the same hymnal, the same batch of facts, the same actual starting point, how can we in our present claim to be the same people from our history? And how can we in this present continue to go on in a similar fashion and be the same people in the future?